Back in late 2025, Cyclone Ditwah slammed into Sri Lanka. Now, this wasn't just another storm. It was a devastating event that laid bare some deep, deep vulnerabilities in the nation's systems. But in the middle of all that destruction, a really critical question has started to emerge. Can this moment of total ruin actually become a catalyst for resilience? So let's start at the human level. This picture, it isn't just data or a statistic. It's the immediate, terrifying reality for whole communities caught right in the storm's path. You can just imagine it. As the floodwaters surged, everyday life just completely vanished, and survival became the one and only thing that mattered. And the cost in human lives was just staggering. We're talking more than 474 people killed, with hundreds and hundreds more missing. But the storm's reach was just immense. It directly affected more than 1.5 million people. Think about that, 1.5 million lives totally upended by flooding, by landslides, and by displacement. And for tens of thousands of families, the very idea of home was just washed away. Over 41,000 houses were either damaged or completely destroyed, leaving people with absolutely nothing. But here's the thing, the really critical point. This wasn't some kind of complete surprise out of the blue. The storm was being tracked, warnings were sent out. So you have to ask yourself, how did a predictable weather event spiral into a full-blown national crisis? The authorities knew Cyclone Ditwah was on its way. Sri Lanka's meteorological agencies, working with the regional center in India, they issued alerts well in advance. They were tracking the storm's path, its intensity. They saw it coming. And that leads us to the absolute heart of the problem. If the alarm was sounded, why didn't that warning translate into safety for people on the ground? Well, the answer, it reveals a whole series of systemic failures. It all comes down to what experts call the warning to action gap. And it's not just one single failure, it's a whole cascade of them. The alerts just didn't get to people in remote rural areas. A lot of people who were used to getting frequent warnings that never amounted to much, they were suffering from what's called alert fatigue and just ignored them. The warnings themselves weren't specific enough, leaving people wondering, is my village actually in danger? And maybe most critically, the evacuation plans, they were just documents on a shelf. Communities had never actually practiced them. And the designated shelters, they were often in the wrong place or totally under-resourced. And beyond just the communication breakdown, the physical and the bureaucratic infrastructure just wasn't ready. In cities like Colombo, you had these old colonial-era drainage systems that were completely overwhelmed. Blocked canals just made everything 10 times worse. You also had this problem of institutional fragmentation. Basically, different government agencies weren't sharing critical data with each other. And so local officials were just stuck, paralyzed, waiting for orders from the capital when every single minute counted. The entire system, you see, was built for a climate that just doesn't exist anymore. So this whole disaster has forced Sri Lanka to a crucial turning point. The choice now isn't just about rebuilding what was lost. It's a really fundamental decision. Do you just patch up the old broken systems, or do you take this moment and build something entirely new? This quote from the source material really just nails it. The reality is, with climate change, storms like Ditwah aren't a one-off event. They're the new normal. So the real challenge is creating systems, physical, economic, and governmental, that are resilient by design. To figure out a path forward, sometimes you have to look back in history. And in this case, we can look to post-World War II Japan, a nation that literally turned total annihilation into one of the greatest economic rebirths in modern history, what we call the Japanese economic miracle. I mean, it is genuinely hard to wrap your head around the scale of devastation in Japan. We're talking millions of lives lost, and over a quarter of its entire industrial capacity just wiped off the map. The nation was, for all intents and purposes, starting from absolute zero. So how on earth did they do it? Well, you can think of their recovery as being powered by 4 key cylinders. First, technology. Instead of just rebuilding their old factories, they leapfrogged everyone and went straight to the newest state-of-the-art tech. Second, capital. They had a super high national savings rate, which funded massive investment in key industries. Third, labor. They built a highly skilled and disciplined workforce. And fourth, trade. They were smart, strategically shifting what they exported to meet whatever the global demand was at the time. And this right here is the key takeaway. Japan didn't try to, recover old files from a corrupted hard drive. No, they saw the crash as an opportunity to wipe the system completely clean and install a brand new, faster, more efficient operating system. They performed a total structural reset. So The big question becomes, how can Sri Lanka apply this exact same structural reset mindset to its own recovery and move from just simple repair to a full-scale reinvention? Well, when you put them side by side, the parallels are actually pretty striking. You see where Japan replaced its destroyed factories with modern tech? Sri Lanka can replace its failed colonial-era drainage with climate-resilient systems. Where Japan used cheap money to boost industry, Sri Lanka can offer zero-interest loans to help small businesses and farmers get back on their feet. And where Japan unified its institutions, Sri Lanka can build a decentralized, community-led disaster response system. So, when you boil it all down, it comes to three really urgent actions. First, modernize the warning system so they actually reach every single person with precise, actionable information. Second, launch a national plan to systematically upgrade infrastructure for this new climate reality. And third, decentralize the response. Empower local communities so they can act immediately without waiting for orders from the top. Let me give you one last tech analogy to really drive this home. Right now, Sri Lanka's system is like a single central server. When it goes down, everything crashes. The goal is to build a modern, decentralized, cloud-based network, where if one part fails, the rest of the system just keeps running smoothly. And this brings us to the ultimate challenge, the real test that's facing the nation. You see, the cyclone wasn't just a test of its defenses. It's now a test of its imagination and its will to actually change. Look, Cyclone Ditwah was, without any question, a tragedy. But buried deep inside that tragedy is a rare opportunity. It's the chance to not just rebuild, but to reset the entire system, to build a nation that is stormer, safer, and truly prepared for whatever the future holds. And so we'll leave you with this final thought. Is resilience really just about surviving the storm, or is it found in the choices that are made in those quiet moments after the storm has passed, when a country has to decide not just what it will repair, but what it wants to become?